Hi, my name is Bob Grenier, and I'm a volunteer for the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 29th of March 2026, where we will ask if we are out of... Hello, Ken Pratt. Hello, Be Happy. Joseph Collar has left the room, but that's okay. Hello, Silver Stargazer. UFO N9Q. Yttrium, barium, copper oxide, Bose-Einstein condensate, John Epson junction, Josephson junction, I guess that's meant to be. Thank you very much for that £10 donation. Hi, Harry, and hi, Chaos Agent. So, relatively short one today. Just wanted you to be updated with where things are and what's expected in the near future. High contraption 2-1-2 overwhelmed games. Mefsoli, and Daz Pizzazz. EB2421. Great to have you all here. So the last several months, or last 2 months in particular, have been absolutely exhausting for me. But I think it was well worth it. Done some great research. Things discounted, or at least challenged a few things, and that's the way of science. And in the coming days, I will share many of those things with you. Now, if anyone can notice, I am sporting my very late 2010s Andrea Rossi splittable glasses. There we go. They're actually just safety glasses that I got from the DIY. I thought it was quite funny when I saw them. They're just like Rossi had back when. So there we go. They're quite good because you can split them and then just let them hang around your neck. So, but I can't see anything without them on. So, in fact, I might put my other glasses on because I'm and you got them out of the packet to show you. Anyway. Thank you very much. Algaz 2001 UK, very much appreciated. Right, okay, so what are we talking about today? Anyone guess what I have over there on the left-hand side? What is that? I'm sure you will know. Someone will know that. Yes, contraption 2112. Oh, snap. Well, it's not snap. It's they're designed to do this. Anyone guess what we are looking at there? It is, yes, a John QE1. Yes, the flower of life. Very good. You all know that. Well, before we get on to why I'm showing you that, I want to give you an update of where things are with respect to what's coming up. Yes, the flower lattice. That is very true. So, forward looking, the Matsumoto book, the very last image is done in the book. So I will be putting the names of the people that contributed that are appropriate to be in the PDF, and a review PDF will be going out next week to those people that received or pledged for that level. Then there will be a article on my visit with Chuck Bennett and his lovely wife in Sarasota, not Sarasota, in Sacramento in California. And that was quite a delightful visit, I have to say. Then I will hopefully get you the Bergamo lectures, which I did last week, numbers 1 and 2. I know that they recorded it, the stream that they sent out, and apparently they will send a release form, and at some point those will be available. I don't know how long that will take. I did try to take my own recording. I think I fully got the audio of all of it. However, I'm not sure, because I haven't checked, whether either or both or any of the cameras that I set up, 2 of which, captured all of the presentations that I made. That said, like I said, I think I've got all the audio, so if anything, I can put together a basic audio with slides at the end. Okay, then the next thing is I managed to get a special, really old 1920s leather case and ship with me back from California 4 tubes, one that we used in the tests in California, of which there are many more videos to share, and the original one that we blew in the first tests on attempted nuclear remediation last year. That one, I want to do a study of the tracks that are inside it and also look at whether there is any element synthesized or things that we have learned to recognize on the inside of the glass or in the electrode itself. So there's a lot of study that needs to be done of that, but we are going to go to the Czech nuclear assessment on Wednesday body, and we are going to do some big studies. Now, one, I did the thing that I had an issue with the Radioscan 701. I removed the center. If I can zoom into this, I can probably focus here. There we go, focus, there we go. I removed this central bit here because I was concerned that for beta and alpha, I wasn't getting the right count level, and I actually did adjust it and found out that when we did the testing, yes, it was vastly higher. And so remember the Czech sources that I was looking to potentially remediate, they were, how should we put this? They're meant to calibrate radiation detectors like sodium iodide detectors. They're not really intended to be remediated. In fact, I don't think there was ever intent for that to occur. And so they're not really designed to give out a specific beam into a specific direction. They're really there to give out a certain activity, a decay rate that can be measured from whatever activity you can measure if you don't change its position, and also specific energies for calibrating samples. And so when I removed this bit here, got much higher level, couldn't compare against previous data. And then Griffin Brock had changed the electrode material such that it was more robust. However, it did look a little bit like it wasn't as high energy. And on the cameras that we used, that we had there in California, we didn't see any scintillations on the cameras that we were using that we had seen in Prague in recent weeks. And so I don't know whether that was the case, but the data did not show remediation in the same way that it had appeared to show in the previous tests last year. Another point that we changed is that we didn't have the samples in a stack. I arranged them in an array, and you will see this in videos in coming days. And so maybe that had something to do with what happened. Obviously, you can make neutrons from taking two sources, and one interacts with the other and produces neutrons. And I'm wondering potentially if, because they were in a stack, then that might have accentuated the decay between the various samples with the higher energy and different electrode, or that it wasn't anything other than bad luck or good luck or false luck with this. So there's a huge amount more testing to do, but I'm just giving you the heads up on that. You'll see the rough data in my second Bergamo lecture. If I can get that out to you, I will do. But what we did show is, and you will see this in videos, that using dental x-rays, that a technique that was pioneered by the late Neil Crichton Gold, who did the lion experiments, we were able to, in 1 or even 2 seconds, expose those and produce actual x-rays. So whatever it is that's coming out, it is able to expose normal x-ray film. Of course, we knew that from Griffin Brock's work. Moreover, we also found some really interesting phenomena that, one, there's no characteristic x-rays. It is a very broad spectrum of so-called photon energies, if that is what they are, as detected by an X123 cadmium telluride detector, and as by a radio scan device with a little scintillator in it. Sorry, radio code made by the same people as make these radio scan. So yeah, it's definitely putting out something. What it is, I don't know, because, and you'll see in other videos, we actually found that water of a couple of inches and high density polyethylene was able to stop the bulk of the high energy radiation, but bizarrely the low end seems to get through. So something really weird is going on, and so the jury's out on that, but it's fantastic to be able to do this research. And Griffin was absolutely stoked. Of course, he didn't know exactly what to expect, but he knew that this kind of testing had to be done at some point and hadn't been done on the specifics of the nature of the radiation. And it's throwing up a few anomalies. So yeah, really, really interesting kind of thing going on. Okay, so so we might learn a little bit more with the Czech Nuclear Authority. Then I actually went on a research trip. I planned it for a long time to Napoli in Italy. And that will be forming part of a little bit crazy part 3. Part 3. That is part 3, which will be coming up in the relatively near future. It's due for its anniversary. We've had a little bit crazy part 1 and part 2, and it's nearly time for part 3. And then I had the deep honor of meeting a person that directly suffered as a result of the event, and they had been holding on to a sample for the best part of a quarter of a century. And yeah, I have to thank that person. You will all know who that is soon. And well, to be honest, I cried for, and I've never done this before, for about half of my journey back from California. You know, I almost did not want to look at the sample. And I kind of put it off whilst I was there. It was Alan's 80th birthday. Thank you very much, Alan, for all you have done for the project and for humanity in general by proxy. And on the last night, I couldn't sleep, and I knew I had to look at the sample. So I got up at 3 a.m., I finished my packing, and I started looking at the sample. And to cut a long story short, it took very little time before things were found. And I asked the person that gave me the sample to hold on to at least half the sample that she had in the event that anyone would challenge my findings. But yeah, I did cry. It must have been a bit weird and concerning for the people sitting around me, people that died, freedoms that have been taken away, and the people that have suffered and died and been maimed since as a result of that. Are people actually getting me? Because my browser here is keep complaining. Are you still there? Let me know. I can't see. Okay, great, Corky. Okay, so yes, there will be a special report on the event. Okay, great. Bad frame rate. Okay, loud. It's normally quiet. Okay. Boom. Why is that then? Yes, boom. Not the right kind of boom. Okay. Now, you might be asking why I have this image here. Well, the reason is because a little while back to a conference down in southern France. In fact, it was a long while ago. And let me just dig that presentation up. It was Yin Gazda that invited me. Thank you, Yin. And there was a person there called Brigitte. She was and is a professional portrait painting artist. And she had spent her career doing portraits of the European elites and royalty. And so I actually had a meeting with her, Yin, someone from the European Union, some other people, and someone you may well know. Let me just see if I can find the presentation. I did have it earlier. Yeah. Give me a second. I will find it. Here we go. All right. So I don't know if you recall, but this was back on Sunday, the 30th of July, 2023. And I'd gone to this rather interesting conference down in France that Yin had invited me to join. And there was this character called Elena Danan, who was, well, interesting, I guess. And she apparently had some connection with Enki, if that's a thing. Anyway, this is Dan, you might know. And I had about a 3-hour conversation with Dan here, Dan Winter. And this is Brigitte. And yeah, it was a real pleasure to be able to share some ideas with them. These were so-called super soldiers and Elena Danan, but all very Dan Winter exercised his best French. And so after the conference, Brigitte, the portrait artist, as I said, sent over an image to Yin Gazda, and Brigitte is absolutely convinced in the reality of reincarnation. And she was suggesting to Yin that I had lived before, and on further investigation, I found out that this particular image was in the royal collection. Now, of course, I've argued that reincarnation down to having your cryptographic key minted, which is based on your DNA, and that your physical form manifests based on your local environment, your nurture, and the local gravity, and so on. It might be that it is the bit that codes for the way your brain is able to interact with the Akashic record that's actually critical, not necessarily everything. But one would imagine that if the genetic code is similar enough in order to manifest the brain that is able to interact with the Akashic record, and effectively you are reincarnated, that perhaps there is also some physicality that is expressed. Anyway, she was absolutely convinced, and I have the message that was sent to Yin here. And Brigitte had said, these are the two drawings I saw in the Chateau d'Amboise in Leonardo's house. So Chateau d'Amboise, for those that don't know, is where Leonardo da Vinci kind of like died. I think his grave is there. And she goes on, now her English isn't perfect, and so, but she's talking it to an Austrian. So I get that the sketch portrait Leonardo did, in fact, is a portrait he did from Bob. Bob researched together with Leonardo. They worked together. I am not at all surprised. Please pass it on to Bob. Yeah, so I was a bit shocked when I saw this, because I did actually recognize myself in this. And I made a short video at the time referring to a sculpture of myself that I had done when I was 13, which was closer in age to whenever this was. And so I will play the video clip that I made at the time regarding this. So after coming back from the conference, Yin was sent an image by Brigitte, the portrait painter, who noted that this image here of a head of a youth circa 1510 is the finest image of one of the fixations of Leonardo da Vinci. This and an older man he used to paint or sketch extensively, and this was the finest version, and it's done on red paper with red chalk and black chalk. It's a very fine piece of work, and it's in the Royal Collection. It was bought hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and she said to her, she thought that it looked quite a bit like me. I said, well, it's got a bit of a Roman nose and maybe a little bit more weight, but I can kind of see where she's going. But I said, it does look a little bit like a self-portrait I made when I was 13. Yeah. Apparently, this character drawn by Leonardo da Vinci was an adolescent, but he looks a little bit older than I was when I made this. So you can see I have less of a Roman nose when I was 13. A little bit more of a surly expression. Yeah. Anyway, that's back when I was doing real physical sculpturing rather than 3D and so forth. Does it look like me? I don't know. She is interested in reincarnation, so this is what occurred to her as a portrait artist. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, so I found that. Sorry, is it clipping? I am clipping, aren't I? What's going on there? Oh, okay. Yeah, so a little bit weird for me to see that. And Yin actually said that someone met up with her who was a spiritual person, and said, and Yin was with John Hutchison, and this person just said, why have you brought Leonardo with you? Anyway, that was a bit odd, and apparently between them they're convinced that we've been working together in the past. So there we go. That's the story. However, when I was just about to go to Napoli, someone had reached out and they said they wanted to speak to me about X, Y, and Z, and when could I find some time, and blah, blah, blah. So I said, listen, I'm going down on a research family trip to Napoli. You know, I'm not going to be presenting and whatever. So, you know, if you want to come down and hang out for a day or two, that'd be fine. And so they came down, and great guy, by the way. But it turned out that he couldn't come up Vesuvio with us because he had busted his back in an accident in a number of years before. So we hung out for a bit of time, and then we went to Vesuvio, and then we came back. He worked that day, and then I had found a place where we could relatively easily walk around, and that he could join us, which was kind of like where the touristy people land with their cruise ships. And so I invited him to come and join us there and to have pizza and stuff. And as we're going around, I found out that actually there was a exhibition of 6 of the foils from the Code Atlantico, the Codis Atlantico of Leonardo da Vinci. They had been, for the very first time, loaned to this cathedral in Napoli. And they had 6 foils on loan and 3 of them on observation at any one time. And so I thought, well, okay, let's go and have a look at this. And partly the reason I wanted to go and see it is because the one image that they were using for promotion looked very similar, but not the same, very similar to the image that Brigitte had identified. So I thought, oh, that's a bit of fun. So anyway, we went to find this place, and here is the cathedral. And the you can see down here the tourist office, and then down here on the left you can see Leonardo is on this poster here, and there was but anyway, we thought it was in the church. They told us to go into the church, and we went into the church, so we paid our go into the church fee, and it actually was in the cloisters. So this is the orange grove in the cloisters, and here is the cloisters themselves, which obviously are on 4 sides of a quadrant. And down the far end, you see here, there was this sign where you paid an extra fee to go in and see this potentially of 6 foils from the Codis Atlantico. So I did the job there of going down, and here is me next to this. It's not the same image. Now, apparently, Leonardo da Vinci only drew 2 people, whoever this was, and an older person. Okay, and so I thought it was just fun, the fact that this similar drawing of this muse was there. Well, can I just say that it turns out that very much so, they did have the image of the 3. They did have the full image on display, and I'm going to share it with you now. And I was even more shocked when I saw it, and you're going to see why. I'm going to take off the rulers here. You're going to see why it shocked me. So I have to say that this image is not as good, and apparently the image that I showed you earlier is the finest example of this muse that has that was ever drawn. And you can see here there is sketching the ear at different sizes and shapes. More interestingly, as I noted, the nose was wrong compared to my own nose from memory at that age. But I can see this nose is different, and I can see someone is also sketching a different profile of the nose over here. So, you know, that was a little bit weird, and there's some thoughts about the chin position. But anyway, this one also doesn't have tight curly hair. It has long curly hair. But of course, around this time, I also did have long curly hair, which I will embarrassingly show you in a minute. That wasn't what shocked me. What shocked me was this. The fact that this so-called image that had been identified by a portrait artist, of the flower of life on the same image. And that made me feel a little bit weird. It also had a cross-linking here. which looks remarkably like what I was proposing for the cross-linking of a 3D flower of life some time ago. It also has up here what would be representative of a 3, 4, 6, and 7 or subtor structure. Yeah, that's the Vesica Pisces that are in there in the subtor structures. So all a little bit weird, to be honest with you. There's also some random images down here. Now, it does say, the note that they had with this was that this is called a profile of a youth and concentric circles. These apparently are concentric circles. That's it. No mention in this tourist guide piece of paper telling people what it was. There was no mention at all that this was anything flower of life. Okay, so no mention of the flower of life. This is the full commentary. Folio 239R of the Codex Atlanticus is an eloquent example of how working materials in Leonardo's workshop were living objects, traversed by different hands and thoughts before assuming a definitive meaning. The support is a coarse paper, which absorbs ink and allows what is on the reverse side to show through, a condition that attests to daily use, devoid of formality. Before Leonardo used it, the sheet seems to have been employed by apprentices to sketch in charcoal risque drawings, now almost invisible. And I think they might be talking about some gender parts potentially up here and so forth. Anyway, some risque drawings, blah, blah, blah. Now almost invisible. A detail that gives us a tangible and lively sense of workshop, a place of study, but also of play, imitation, and experimentation. Later, the surface was occupied by geometric exercises and annotations. A young man's head, in profile and in red chalk, retraced with pen, cannot Leonardo, but to a collaborator, perhaps practicing the plastic rendering of the face. Okay, plastic is like moving things in and out and moving it around and trying different forms. Now, I agree with the assessment that this was by Leonardo. Why do I say that? It's because this image, according to the library in Milan, this image was produced 7 years after the finest image of this muse by Leonardo himself. So the original image was produced in 1510, and this image was produced in 1517. So more than 500 years ago. So I suspect what was happening was, yes, these were apprentices of Leonardo da Vinci, and they saw his actual drawing of whoever this character was, and they were having a hash at trying to replicate it. And that for me would be supported by the fact that they weren't sure when they had another nose line option out here. Was this a line drawn by Leonardo? Or I don't know, you know. And of course, they're changing the parts of the nose in and out, and they're moving the chin in and out, and they're changing the ear position and the ear shape. So there is definitely some play going on here. Actually, what they call these images here in this description is deludo geometrico, which means of geometric play. Anyway, to go on, they say, on the lower part appear 5 concentric circle figures related to the so-called ludo geometrico, a mathematical game Leonardo used to explore proportional relationships and growth dynamics. Next to the circles are 2 interlaced ribbon patterns. So I guess he is talking about these two here. two interlaced ribbon patterns, shape approaching his famous nodal structures. Investigations into the continuity of the line and movement in space. The division 365 to 8 recorded on the sheet, along with other numbers noted in the column, along with other numbers in a column, likely refers to calculations concerning the division of the solar year according to recurring cycles. The phrase noted on the left, which I guess is up here maybe, the phrase noted on the left, and the equal parts decrease in magnitude. And conversely, they increase in number as they decrease in size. Clarifies the principle under study, a law of balance and proportion. So essentially, as above, so below. If you've got they're smaller, you get more of them. If they're bigger, you get less of them. This sheet, in its fragmentary aspect, testifies to the breadth of Leonardo's method, observing, measuring, and playing with forms to understand the profound harmony that governs the world. Well, there you go. So, yes, it is assessed that Leonardo's hand is at work on here, but this specific drawing is not possible to attribute to him, although it is clearly of the same individual. Now, where it differs from the very fine version that was painted or drawn 7 years earlier is that it has these long curly hairs coming down, at least implied. And so I'm going to show you some embarrassing photos here. Oh dear. Of this. But firstly, I will show you an image that I took of myself next to this foil so you can get a perception of the size. Just let me fix this. And I will save it there, and I will drop it in here. So yeah, this is a little bit off the beaten track, but I wanted to show proof of life and that lots of good things are on their way. Of course, I do need to find out where this image is, so bear with me a second. Give me a second, nearly there. I don't know what's going on for you, but the streaming software is coming in and out, so hopefully it's okay. So first up is this. To give you a perspective, I'm standing about a foot or something of the image. My lip when I was younger was a little bit more prone, but not as much as the more Italian lip that is there. But comparing the sort of original image that I showed with you here and this one, which I showed you here, obviously one is more refined than the other. And I would suggest this is very much more refined. So yes, one's short curly hair, and one, in my view, is longer wavelets. And I will show you two images of when I was about 24, maybe to 27. So don't laugh. Yeah, so there we go. So yeah, at one point it was curly. Most of the rest of the time I had short hair and it was curly. So there we go. No, I didn't have a cleft palate. I was a freak though. So yeah, I think probably. I mean, I basically did have hair that looked like that when I was younger. Not quite as tight curls, but again, there's some definite Roman Italian form to this. It's kind of like the Italian version of myself. This one, however, has basically the nearly useless eyebrow that I have. It's like an afterthought on there, which my eyebrow is, and yeah, it's long curly hair, which I did have when I was young. So no, that was actually my hair. It really was literally like that. In fact, if it dried naturally, it was absurdly curly. Yeah. So only as my hair has gone straighter and straighter. So yeah, that's basically it. It is for me. Am I out of my time? I don't know. I didn't really know whether to take Brigitte seriously when she sent me this image here. But having had this circumstance where I'm just going for a different reason to Napoli on research, and for the first time in history, they're sharing foils from the Codex Atlantica, and there's 6 foils on display, and of those 6 foils, only 3 of them can be on display at any one time, and it just so happens that the one that's on the advertising was on display, and that is in fact absolutely freakily on the same page as the study of the flower of life. Yeah, little bit freaked out. And this comes from a person who's obsessed with reincarnation. So I have said throughout this process, I continuously feel like I'm cheating. I don't know where it comes from, but it mostly comes in the middle of the night, somewhere between sleep and awake. And I've been consistent with that. And so, given the fact that I'm a firm believer in the Akashic Record, and I have a very specific and detailed understanding that makes me comfortable with the notion of passing on to the other side for aging, that it is absolutely, in my view, 100% certain that people can be reincarnated. Death is not the final answer. We do not need to upload our consciousness to some digital structure. Our consciousness is real-time, updated all the time to the Akashic Record, in my view. That is your spirit, and your spirit is either minted for the first time when the 2 gametes come together, or it's reminted over and over again, and your body form reflects the environment, the food, you know. And as I say, your body doesn't need to be exactly the same. Only your read-write access needs to be able to get into phase with your previous incarnation for you to be effectively connected to that previous incarnation. And people might find this uncomfortable. So I think it's quite exciting. I think it's quite nice to know that you are a spirit first. And this bag of shit is just a means by which you get another chance to have a go at life and read and write to the Akashic Record. And so that is basically... So if anyone's got any comments on that, I know that was a little bit of crazy, and this was a bonus bit of crazy. But I did want to share that with you and to give you an update on what's coming, and I will. And there's lots more to come than I've shared there, but that's what I'm planning to do in the near future. So MF Louder HCPC says, I'm going to reincarnate a little bit thinner next time. Bernie says, I'm Bernie the Alchemist, and I was Bernie the Alchemist in the previous life too. Gonz Chizio says, is there a recording of the Bergamo conference? All, as I understand it, all but one segment of one part of the Bergamo conference was recorded. That was specifically asked by the presenter not to be recorded because it's going to be presented later in the year. But I have to say, I'm going to give a summary now. The Bergamo conference, there's my brochure there, 23rd to the 26th of March. It was extremely good. And basically, it was held at this place called Chilometro Rossi, and the company that held it or funded it was Ground Control Holding. And Ground Control Holding basically made their money, as far as I can work it out, by making brakes for high-performance cars like Porsche. And they have been sponsoring a company called Prometheus, which they set up. And they've been operating for a good number of years now. And we were able to go into their labs, no cameras allowed or whatever, but we were given access to several devices. They had some 3 variants of plasma reactors, which they say they've got nearly a COP of 1.5 in terms of combined energy yield. That is production of hydrogen, thermal and or electric, and mechanical power out of their process. They also had a cavitator there, and that they had a separate team running that. I was very glad to see the cavitator. And they had another system where they were using a deuterated metal, and they were firing a laser at it, and they were producing what would appear to be fusion events based on a spectrometer. And so, yeah, really, really interesting work. After I'd been engaging with people and I didn't realize they were part of the team, some of them came up to me and they shared with me some images because they had replicated Ken Shoulder's exotic vacuum objects, some of his experiments. And I was pleasantly surprised to find that their strike marks exactly and perfectly represent the fractal. Oh, I'm trying to put 2 pairs of glasses on. What an idiot. Oh dear. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for here, and I will show you what it was that they were, what the thing was that they were showing me that was very similar to what I'd shared in the past. So essentially, one of the strike marks was basically a ring and spot that we know. And I will see if I can find the other. No. And if I try that over there, then it probably will work. Give me a second. If you ask questions, I'll try and get to them in a second. Well, I mean, many of you will know what I'm talking about if I just describe it. But essentially, it's the split donut with the kind of figure of 8 that looks more like a bow tie with the black spot and the vortex going into the middle. That's essentially what they had found in the non-ring spot strike mark. Just try and see if I can get it here, but I don't know whether I've got it. I don't think I've got it. No, I haven't got it easy to hand, so sorry about that. So Belilith says, if you need a magnifying glass, you can put two glasses together. Yes, apparently you can. Hello, DIY Witch Alexis. Great to have you here with us. Yeah, so Gazacizzo says Brembo sponsors Prometheus. Yes, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. And they're a very serious outfit. And I have to say the whole conference was very good. And they put on, yeah, I mean, and there was also a moment in there where a member from Prometheus had been invited to go to the European Union. And he gave a very, the recording of that meeting, which was public in the European Union, was shared at the conference. And essentially what they are asking for is for €1 billion to fund LENA in Europe. It's a small fraction of the budget of the European Union. It's a small amount of money that's gone to hot fusion and so on. And obviously the argument with energy issues right now has some weight. And there is also a ARPA-E meeting next week, I think it is, or the week after next in California. So they're looking at doing some more funding over there in California. So things are heating up in the space. For me, the most important presentation I wanted to see, I was actually in another room at the time. It was Keith Fredericks on strange radiation. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I only caught the very tail end of it, and it looked really good. But there were other very, very good presentations. And I had a really good sit-down dinner with the team from Orient Energy, Monty Childs and Michael Claridge, and yeah, had long chats with them, and they're getting along. They're in the state of getting agreement on being able to handle a certain amount of uranium and thorium for the uranium and thorium remediation-based energy generator, no less. Yes. And the Max Formachev Zamalov is working to have their neutron detection on there, as he is, as per my recommendation, with Binjuan Huang in Taiwan. And so I'm just looking through. Matthew Villat, my former director and colleague at the MFMP, gave several presentations for their work under the Clean HME project. And the current work that they've been doing is with a particular mineral, which called hydrotalcites, which seems to be able to produce a fairly consistent excess heat. And the device experiment design is essentially almost exactly the same as the glow stick 5.2 experiment. So this is an MFMP, Alan Goldwater and myself era Rossi type replication, but our own design. It actually spawned the experiment, kind of like the little robot of Alan Smith, who sadly departed more recently. And on that note, what I don't have in the list, and I'll add to the list of things that are coming up, this weekend, in fact, this Thursday, I will be driving to Germany, where I will be joining Artifact, and we will be replicating, or attempting to replicate, the Lion experiment by Neil Crichton Gold. And so I'm going to add that into my list of things here. And we're doing that live, and that will be being done with Artifacts. There we go, Lion experiment. And we will be doing that with Artifacts data acquisition tool that he has built as part of his efforts to assist with the Evo Labs DAO. And that in itself will also be a hat tip to Alan Smith, because Alan Smith was the one that actually made the device that we will be using to replicate the Lion experiment, the so-called little robot. And so it will be a double memorial experiment, and we'll have to see what happens out of that. So MF Lauder HC9PC says, would Erin provide electrostatic field strength for the event? Yes. Misunderstood says, any more roads this year? No, unfortunately not roads. I kind of trying to be as efficient as possible with time and very limited resources. But it would be lovely too, but unfortunately no. Gordon Doherty, with fertilizers in short supply, the Ukraine process of seeding soil with solitons should be of great interest. Yeah, that is. I talked about that a lot to a lot of people at the conference, and for me, it's a very high priority to be starting research in that area. Yeah. So thank you, Gordon Doherty. Yes. So YBCO Beck says, would clones share access to the Akashic record? I have absolutely gone on the record and said categorically yes. Now, the one proviso is that, as complicated as the toroidal moment is, if you're slightly out of phase, you're slightly out of phase. That is to say, to give you an example, if you had a sodium atom and a sodium atom, they're both sodium atoms, they're both exactly the same, but if they're slightly out of phase, they are physically different objects, and they, even if they're slightly different energy levels. So it's only when you cohere the two together, and I would call them that like a mind meld, or you get shocked into having the same phase, or you for some reason wake up at the same time, that you would be in the same phase space in synchronization with the other person. That said, it's quite likely that various events through the day or through life, that if you had someone else that was your exact clone, you'd constantly be rewriting and to the same Akashic record, and so you would be literally hearing things or remembering things that didn't actually happen to you. Marty Angel says to Crypto Alchemist about Aaron Murakami's work. His Highness says, I'm more interested in tumor treating fields via low power frequencies as much as gravity beams. Yeah, I think you probably could. So YBCOs, can we test this with cloned mice? I think you probably could. I think what you do, again, you do need to have them shocked so that their consciousness is in phase. And then you would have one mouse work out how to do the maze, and then you would put the other mouse that is still in phase in the maze and see if they can get to the exit faster. Something along those lines would be an experimental design. for me, part of the answer is already given in those that are twins. So genetically, supposedly, they are very similar. And it is not unheard of that twins feel connected to each other and sometimes can feel each other's pain. And one could argue maybe they even have some recollection of the other's experience. Exponential negative. Yep, all help is welcome. So please reach out. We have a blog, a new blog called Starfire Starfire.tech, and maybe I can pull up that. I don't know whether I have it here. If you just go to starfire.tech, I'll do it here. So you can see here a melon with its 3 vortex anti-vortex. Thank you to Earthworm Jim for the original image from which this was created of a melon. And you can send a message via the box down the bottom here. Okay, so I do want to get to sleep. I have so much to do in the coming week. And like I say, the first thing that I want to get out the door is the Matsumoto PDF review copies to everyone. So I'm going to finish up here. If you have any questions, write them on the blog and I will endeavor to answer them. Sorry, just I have seen the telepathy tapes. I did want to reach out to her. My story is that I have had a very strong telepathy connection with my father. My sister, much less so, but now I have it with my daughter, and it's quite funny. We don't abuse it. Anyway, so this was out of time. And essentially, if you want to get a limited edition Matsumoto book, you're nearly out of time because that will not be possible soon, because I will start rolling out the last of the rewards. There will be a article on Chuck Bennett coming up soon for our delightful meeting with him and his wife Barbara. We will be doing a lion experiment in this coming weekend. That is the intention. You will see in some form or other, either from me or from the conference, my Bergamo lectures 1 and 2. On Wednesday this coming week, we will be testing some new and conditioned Desmitron tubes from Griffin Brock at the Czech Nuclear Assessment Center. I did a trip to Napoli to do some research for Crazy Part 3, and that led me to observe something which was an extension of a shock that I'd been given a number of years ago. by Bergamo in southern France. And I also, as I said earlier, I received this sample from a person materially and severely affected by the event, which they have been holding on to for nearly a quarter of a century. It is shocking to me to think that, given that the population of the planet seems to double every sort of 27 years, there is nearly half of the planet that were not even born when the event happened. And I did an initial analysis of a very small fragment of the sample that I was given, which was no more than 50% of the sample that this individual had at my request, so that there is some sample that she has for anyone to verify anything that I do or do not find. And in that sample, there was, shockingly, a lot of what we have all learned is the product of many different physical processes where there is extreme ionization and extreme hydrodynamic shear, but it is the product, in my view, of ball lightning. And yes, I did cry on the way back from California, having seen that, and the sheer weight of what that means. So yeah, it turns out that there is pictures done by Leonardo da Vinci here, which look shockingly a lot like I did when I was younger. And it was his muse. There was an older man that he did, so he only drew two sketches. It was of this young person, whoever it was, and this older person. And I have then was further shocked to find out that on the same foil from the Atlanticus, he did a deep study on the flower of life and substructures thereof. So with that, I will thank you very much for your time, and I will see you in the next video. Buenas noches, dobro noc. Good night.